Mongolia on MNB World, and I'm your host, Jargalma Dovshinjargal. Our top stories for today. Mongolian cabinet approves key initiatives for winter preparations and educational advancements. Mongolia faces critical shortage of conservation professionals for historical artifacts. The first direct flight from Ulaanbaatar to Prague and back carried 234 passengers. For the news, stay tuned. During its session on July 17, 2024, the Mongolian cabinet approved a series of important measures, including the submission of a new government action program and budget amendments, directives for winter preparations in critical sectors, and the establishment of an international engineering school aimed at bolstering regional development and economic integration.
The cabinet decided to submit a government action program, a memorandum of understanding between the Mongolian People's Party, the Democratic Party, and the Hun Party, and draft amendments to the law on the state budget, to the state Great Horal. A working group consisting of representatives from the three coalition parties has been established to facilitate this process. Prime Minister Erdogan directed ministers to strictly follow the law on civil service, advising against making decisions regarding the release or dismissal of civil servants and against increasing the number of positions. Minister Ochal, head of the Cabinet Secretariat, outlined the issues discussed at the meeting and emphasized that the government is preparing projects and programs for launch within the first 100 days, complete with detailed work plans. Deputy Prime Minister and Head of the State Emergency Commission Amr Sakhan presented the cabinet with plans for winter preparations in the areas of livestock, energy and road transport sectors. The Minister of Food, Agriculture and Light Industry, Ikhbayar, was tasked with creating a detailed plan for the winter and spring of 2024-2025 in the agricultural sector, ensuring its implementation and organizing herder migrations efficiently. The Prime Minister instructed Minister Ikhbayar to draft a government resolution to guide cabinet members, agency directors, and regional governors. The Minister of Energy, Charter Surung, was assigned to ensure the energy sector's readiness for the winter of 2024-2025 and to present issues for discussion at each cabinet meeting. The Minister of Roads and Transport, Ilkar Sakhan, was directed to develop and implement a winter preparation plan for the road and transport sector. The Minister of Education, Narmbayev, presented a proposal to establish an international engineering school under the Mongolian University of Science and Technology. Ministers Narmbayev and Foreign Affairs Minister Batstag were tasked with launching this project and report its progress to the cabinet. This initiative is part of Mongolia's Vision 2025 long-term development policy, which aims to strengthen foreign economic relations by developing the Mongolia-Russia-China economic corridor, establishing free trade agreements, and participating in regional economic and trade integration. The new engineering school aims to train skilled human resources and develop technologies to support regional sustainable development.
Mongolia, a nation rich in history and cultural heritage, is facing a critical shortage of skilled conservators, restorers who specialize in the preservation of its invaluable historical artifacts. As the country continues to uncover and collect artifacts that reflect its rich past, the lack of trained professionals poses a significant challenge to maintaining and protecting these treasures for future generations.
In recent years, Mongolia has seen an increase in archaeological discoveries ranging from ancient tools and pottery to significant relics from the era of Genghis Khan. Despite the wealth of historical artifacts, the country suffers from a shortage of qualified conservators, restorers to manage their preservation. This shortage has led to concerns about the long-term conservation of these items, many of which are vulnerable to deterioration due to environmental factors and aging. For example, in Mongolia, there are only about 10 restorers of textile artifacts. One of them is Ogun Chimik. She has worked in this field for some 20 years. She restored the Del found in Bayan Tsuktsom of Bayonulgi province. It was covered in mud and dust and animal feces. Then I studied the Del design of that period and restored the Del piece by piece, trying to recover the initial shape and form. Sculptor Achirsurun majored in restoring metal artifacts that are commonly found in Mongolia.
We have ancient metal items that survived and stayed till our days, such as horses' armor details. And the charm of this profession is that you can touch it with your hands and see it.
The role of conservators, restorers, is crucial in maintaining the integrity of historical artifacts. These professionals assess, document, and apply specialized techniques to clean, stabilize, and repair items, ensuring their longevity and historical accuracy. Without proper conservation, artifacts can suffer irreversible damage, leading to a loss of cultural heritage and historical knowledge. For example, our museum lacks conservators, restorers who work with rock artifacts and stone stelas. If we find such items, we seek support from other agencies, so we need to prepare specialists on the policy level. Addressing this shortage requires a multifaceted approach, such as establishing dedicated conservation programs within Mongolia's universities and offering scholarships for international study can help build a skilled workforce. Increased funding for museums and cultural institutions can enable them to hire and train conservators, restorers, as well as improve conservation facilities. Raising awareness about the importance of conserving cultural heritage can garner support from both the public and private sectors, leading to more resources for conservation efforts. Mongolia's cultural heritage is a testament to its rich history and unique identity. Preserving this heritage through skilled conservation is essential for maintaining the country's historical legacy.
Now let's take a look at Mongolian current affairs. The welcoming ceremony for the first direct flights on the Ulaanbaatar to Prague to Ulaanbaatar Road was held at the Václav Havel International Airport in Prague, the Czech Republic, on July 10, 2024. In addition to Mongolians residing in the Czech Republic, the first flight carried passengers traveling through Prague to other European destinations, such as Austria, the United Kingdom, and France. 81 passengers flew on the first direct flight from Ulaanbaatar to Prague. On the return flight from the Prague to Ulaanbaatar, 153 passengers traveled. The Easiness Airways company operates direct flights on the Ulaanbaatar to Prague to Ulaanbaatar Road under the Intergovernmental Agreement on Aviation Relations between the governments of Mongolia and the Czech Republic. Ulaanbaatar city has issued bonds worth 500 billion Mongolian tukruks for the first time on the domestic capital market and invested 300 billion Mongolian tukruks in the Boruljut power plant. Located about 120 kilometers from Ulaanbaatar in Panjaralan Somgtu province, the plant is said to have a total capacity of 600 megawatt across 4 sections. The first 150 megawatt section is expected to be operational by October 2024. Currently, 72% of the work on the first section is completed, including the installation of GIS 220 kilowatt outdoor switchgear equipment and the assembly of 85% of the coal bunker for the boiler. Construction is ongoing for buildings housing essential equipment like air compressors and wastewater pumps. The second section is planned to start operating in 2025. Once both sections are operational, the Boruljut power plant aims to produce up to 2.1 billion kilowatt-hour of electricity annually. The mayor of Ulaanbaatar and governor of the capital city, Nimbaatar, highlighted the following. This marks the first time in Ulaanbaatar city history that it has traded bonds worth 500 billion Mongolian tukruks and invested 300 billion Mongolian tukruks in the Boruljut power plant. Additionally, a tender for a 50 megawatt battery power plant will be announced this month. These initiatives aim to meet the city's growing energy demands. This information comes from the Media and Public Relations Department of the Governor's Office of Ulaanbaatar City. Thank you for staying with us. Now let's take a look at currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Next, our program will turn our attention to foreign news, partnered with international news agencies. Ukraine and Russia exchanged 95 prisoners of war each, officials in both countries said Wednesday, 3 weeks after their last swap and as part of what have been occasional agreements to send captured troops home.
Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky and the Russian Defense Ministry reported the exchange. The prisoners of war swap was the 54th since Russia launched a full-scale invasion of its neighbor in February 2022. Ukraine's coordination headquarters of POWs released images showing the prisoners who were released in the latest exchange celebrating and chanting glory to Ukraine. Officials from the warring countries meet only when they swap their dead and prisoners of war after lengthy preparations and diplomacy. Neither Ukraine nor Russia discloses how many prisoners there are in total. Among the released Ukrainians were some who had spent more than 2 years in captivity. They were captured in Mariupol during Russia's early offensive in the Kyiv region and battles in the eastern Luhansk region, the country's coordination headquarters for prisoners of war said. It said just over 3,400 people, both civilians and military, have returned from Russian captivity since the outbreak of the war. The Russian Defense Ministry said the freed Russian soldiers will be flown to Moscow for medical treatment and rehabilitation. According to the United Nations, most Ukrainian prisoners of war suffer routine medical neglect, severe and systemic mistreatment, and even torture while in detention. There have also been isolated reports of abuse of Russian soldiers, mostly during capture or transit to internment sites.
Relatives of passengers and crew killed when Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 was shut down over Ukraine gathered in Amsterdam on Wednesday to mark the 10th anniversary of the tragedy that claimed 298 lives, over half of whom were Dutch.
Commemoration services took place in the Netherlands, Australia, and the site of the crash in the Russia-controlled part of the Donetsk region as the war in Ukraine raged on. Hundreds of family members joined the Dutch king, politicians, and diplomats at an event at a memorial in the Netherlands close to Schiphol, the airport of the Kuala Lumpur-bound Boeing 777 departed from July 17th on 2014. Many of the families arriving for the service also carried sunflowers, laying them next to trees. Flags of the countries that lost citizens hung at half-staff next to the field of blooming sunflowers. Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof quoted a poem on loss called "Come Back" by Toon Tellegen and pledged to keep on the fight to hold accountable those responsible. The Netherlands was home to 196 of the victims, while 38 hailed from Australia. Victims also came from Malaysia, Indonesia, the United Kingdom, Belgium, Germany, the Philippines, Canada, New Zealand, Vietnam, Israel, Italy, Romania, and the United States. A similar ceremony was held at Australia's Parliament House in Canberra and at the crash site in the village of Hrabov. Several dozen local residents brought flowers, stuffed animals, and even a model airplane to a small memorial stone installed in a field near where some of the wreckage was found. In 2022, a Dutch court convicted in absentia 2 Russians and a Ukrainian separatist for their role in the jet's downing, but Moscow has repeatedly denied responsibility. An international investigation initiated in the United Nations Security Council by the Netherlands, Malaysia, and Australia concluded that the Buk missile system that destroyed MH17 belonged to the Russian 53rd Anti-Craft Missile Brigade. The investigation concluded the missile was driven into Ukraine from a Russian military base near the city of Kursk and returned there after the plane was shot down. Russia continues to be pursued under international law by the Netherlands in the European Court of Human Rights and by Australia and the Netherlands jointly through the International Civil Aviation Organization Council, or ICAO, over its alleged role in bringing down MH17.
Italian Premier Giorgia Meloni visited Libya on Wednesday to take part in a migration forum hosted by Libyan Prime Minister Abdulhamid Dbeibeh. Libya has emerged as a primary transit point for migrants fleeing war and poverty in Africa and the Middle East on their way to Europe. Migrants who reach the coast pay to board poorly equipped and crowded ships before they set off on risky sea crossings.
Italy is one of the main points of arrival on the other side of the Mediterranean. According to the United Nations, more migrants and refugees in Africa are heading northward toward the Mediterranean and Europe, crossing perilous roads in the Sahara where criminal gangs subject them to enslavement, organ removal, rape, kidnapping, for ransom, and other abuses. A recently released report by the United Nations Refugee and Migration Agencies and the Mixed Migration Center Research Group estimated that land routes in Africa are twice as deadly as the sea lanes across the Mediterranean, which is the deadliest maritime route for migrants in the world. In March, authorities discovered a mass grave containing the bodies of at least 65 migrants in the deserts of western Libya. Italy's right-wing government, led by Meloni, has made limiting migration a priority. It has signed deals with individual African countries to block departures, imposed limits on the work of humanitarian rescue ships, cracked down on traffickers who reach Italy, and taken other measures to deter would-be migrants from setting off.
Now let's take a look at international current affairs. Record-breaking rainfall has hit southern cities in China's West Shanxi province, official Chinese media reported Wednesday. A state broadcaster CCTV showed flood in swollen rivers, breaking roads and causing mud flows. CCTV said more than 15,000 people have been evacuated in the affected areas. The heavy rains also resulted in waterlogging inside cities. In the neighboring Gansu province, floods and landslides caused by heavy rains damaged multiple highways and interrupted traffic, CCTV reported. China's central Henan province has experienced particularly heavy rainfall, with Nanyang City alone recording 400 to 797 millimeters of precipitation, including 30 to 50 millimeters in just 1 hour, according to the Meteorological Department. Over 1,200 people in the city have been evacuated so far, CCTV said. Now let's take a look at weather forecast for world major cities. Alright, that's all for today. Thank you for staying with us. We will see you at tomorrow with more news and updates. Goodbye.